Alright, so we're going to start talking about living together. Living together deals with population ecology. Okay? Alright, population ecology takes place, life takes place in populations. Populations are a group of individuals, same species, in the same area at the same time. Population ecology, what factors are going to affect a population? Okay? A population is going to rely on the same resources, they're going to interact, and they're going to interbreed. Okay? So, scientific goal of population ecology is to understand the factors that influence the sizes of populations. Okay, we're going to be looking at general principles and specific cases. We're going to be looking at a practical goal, which would be our management of populations. How can we increase population size? How can we help endangered species? How can we decrease population size if we have pests? How can we maintain population size? For example, fisheries management. Okay, maintain and maximize sustainable yield. Okay, factors that affect population size. Of course, you have those abiotic factors that affect population size. These are your non-living factors. Okay, so this is going to be sunlight and temperature, precipitation and water, soil, nutrients. Then you have your biotic factors. Your biotic factors include other living organisms, prey, competitors, parasites, disease. Intrinsic factors, this is adaptations. Okay, so characterizing a population. What are we going to use to describe a population? Okay, we're going to talk about the population range. This is where they live, what area they cover. Pattern of spacing, how spread out, how packed are they. Okay, so that deals with density. We're going to talk about the size of the population, number of individuals. Alright, population range, geographical limitations. Okay, this is going to be limitations due to abiotic and biotic factors. For example, these nice little macaws here are not going to be living in the same environment as this polar bear because of biotic and abiotic factors. Okay, temperature, rainfall, food, predators, etc. Habitat. Okay, this polar bear has adaptations to the polar biome. These have adaptations for the rainforest. Okay, they're not going to overlap. Changes in range. Range expansions and contractions. Changing environment. Okay, so by changing environment, it can change what things are there. Okay. Alright, at-risk populations, endangered species, generally due to limitations to range and habitat. Okay, places the species at risk. Okay, the rhinoceros. Okay, its habitat has been greatly limited. Alright, dispersion patterns. This provides insight into environmental associations and social interactions in a population. Within a population's geographic range, local densities may vary substantially. Variations in local densities are among the most important characteristics that a population ecologist might study, since they provide insight into the environmental associations and social interactions of individuals in the environment. Environmental differences, even at a local level, contribute to variation in population density. Some habitat patches are simply more sustainable for a species than others. Social interactions between members of the population, which may maintain patterns of spacing between individuals, can also contribute to variation in population density. Alright, so this is clumped, when they're going to be grouped together in organisms. Okay, we see this with schooling fish. Okay, random means they're just spread out wherever. We see this in forests and trees. Okay, uniform means they are equally spaced together. We see this a lot of times in birds when they are nesting. Okay. Alright, clump pattern is the most common. Okay, with the individuals aggregated in patches. Plants or fungi are often clumped when soil conditions and other environmental factors favor germination and growth. For example, mushrooms may be clumped on a rotting log. Many animals spend much of their time in a particular microenvironment that satisfies their requirements. Forest insects and salamanders, for instance, are frequently clumped under logs where the humidity tends to be higher than it is in the exposed areas. Clumping of animals may also be associated with mating behavior. For example, mayflies often swarm in great numbers, behavior that increases mating chances for those insects, which survive only a day or two as reproductive adults. Group living may also increase the effectiveness of certain predators. For example, wolf pack is more likely than a single wolf to bring down a large prey. Okay, uniform. Uniform may result from direct interactions between individuals in the population. Territoriality. Okay, a uniform or evenly spaced pattern of dispersion may result. For example, some plants secrete chemicals that inhibit the germination and growth of nearby individuals that could compete for resources. Animals often exhibit uniform dispersion as a result of anatistic social interactions such as territoriality, the defense of a bounded physical space against encroachment of other individuals. Uniform patterns are not as common in populations as clump patterns. Okay, population size. Okay, changes to population size. Adding or removing individuals is going to change your population size. This can be from birth, from death, immigration, and emigration. Immigration moving in, emigration moving out. Birth increases, death decreases. Immigration increases, emigration decreases. Okay, so what other factors can affect population growth? The sex ratio, the number of males to females. Okay, generation time. How long does it take the female to be able to reproduce? Age structure. How females at reproductive age are in a cohort. Okay, factors that affect growth and decline of populations, vital statistics, and how they change over time. So this is a population of squirrels, ground squirrels, and how their population changed over time. Okay, notice that the males had a much lower survival rate than the females. Okay. Death rate of the as you got to 9 to 10 years. Okay, for females was the same as basically 5 to 6 for males. Okay, why do the teenage boys pay higher car insurance rates? Because they are more likely to get into trouble. Okay, what adaptations have led this difference in male and female mortality? Well, it is the males that are sent out to look for dangers, whereas the females stay in the nest with the young. Alright, survivorship curves. Graphic representation of a life table. The relative straight line of the plots indicate relatively constant rates of death. However, males have a lower survival rate overall than females. Okay, relative number of individuals. Why does this data imply about populations in these countries? It implies that certain areas have better growth. Okay, we talk about either top-heavy or bottom-heavy populations. All right, generalized strategies and survivorship curves. What do these graphs tell us about survival strategies of the species? We have 3 types. 1 has a high death rate in post-reproductive years. 2 has a constant mortality rate throughout the lifespan. And 3 has a very high early mortality rate, but the few survivors that then live long and stay reproductive. Okay. All right, trade-offs. The cost of reproduction. Increased reproduction may decrease survival. Okay, age at first reproduction is going to affect this. Investment per offspring. Number of reproductive cycles per lifetime. Okay, this all ties into reproductive success. Okay. All right, this is the Crystal Falcon. Okay, cost of larger broods to both male and females. Okay, notice the reduced brood size. The male and female survive much easier than as we increase the survival. Okay, so reproductive strategies. We have what's called K-selected and R-selected reproductive strategies. K-selected means that they have late reproduction, few offspring. They invest a lot in the raising of the offspring. This is what we see in primates, so we are K-selected individuals. Okay? A coconut is also this way. R-selected. R-selected has early reproduction, many offspring, little parental care, and this is what we see in insects and many plants. Okay, trade-offs. Number and size of offspring versus survival of offspring and parent. Okay, so there is trade-off between the two things. Okay. Alright, so number and size of offspring and survivorship of the offspring of the parent. Okay. Alright, so a dandelion is R-selected. Okay, because it's going to produce many offspring and it's going to do it very early on in its lifespan. Okay, the coconut is K-selected because the coconut is only going to produce a few seeds, and it's going to actually ensure the success of that few number of offspring. Alright, so if we look at life strategies, and a type 1 curve is a flat at the start, reflecting the low death rate during early and middle life, then drops off drastically after the individuals enter older age. Humans and many other large mammals that produce few offspring but provide them with good care often exhibit this kind of curve. Okay? So that would be a K-selected curve. In contrast, type 3 curve drops sharply at the start, reflecting very high death rate for the young ones, but then flattens out as death rates decline for those individuals that have survived with little or no care. Okay, such as long-lived plants, many fishes, marine invertebrates, oysters, turtles have this type of selection curve. Alright, so population growth. Population growth is the change in population, which is births minus deaths. Okay, it's an exponential model, which is the ideal characteristics. So we have delta n divided by delta t equals Ri times n. N is the number of individuals, R is the rate of growth, Ri is the intrinsic rate, and t is time, and d being the rate of change. Okay, so d is like delta. Alright, intrinsic rate is the maximum rate of growth. Okay, so every pair has 3 offsprings, would be an example here. Every pair has 4 offsprings. The growth increasing at a constant rate. Okay, this is called exponential growth. Exponential growth is characteristics of populations without limiting factors. Okay, introduced to a new environment or rebounding from a catastrophe, they're going to go through exponential growth, which means they're going to have a very huge increase, as you see in this elephant here, increase in the population size. Okay, African elephant, once it was protected from hunting, whooping crane coming back from near extinction. Alright, however, we know that there are limiting factors on the size of a population. Okay, they are we have density dependent factors. This is competition. Density dependent is tied to how many individuals there are. So it could be food, mates, nesting sites. Okay, predators, parasites, pathogens. Density independent factors would be your abiotic factors, your sunlight, your energy, your temperature, your rainfall. Okay, introduced species, non-native species. We sometimes call these exotic species or alien species. Their transported populations grow exponentially in a new area. We should all be familiar with this guy down here. This is kudzu. Okay, they outcompete native species. They're going to have loss of natural control. So they don't have any natural predators. Nothing naturally attacks them. Okay, lack of predators, parasites, competitors. They reduce diversity. Examples: the African honeybee, gypsy moth. Okay, the zebra mussel, purple loosestrife. Okay, all right, let's focus on the zebra mussel for just a moment. Zebra mussels were brought in accidentally in the ballast of ships. Okay, the way a ship stays afloat is it takes in a certain amount of water into its ballast, and it releases it to keep it buoyant. Okay, so zebra mussels are native to the Mediterranean Sea. Ships that went to the Mediterranean Sea would then come up the waterway, go to the Great Lakes. They would release some of their water from their ballast in the Great Lakes that would have zebra mussel hatchings in them. Okay, you can see in here, 1988 was when we first discovered zebra mussels. By September of 1999, you can see that it has basically taken over almost all of the Mississippi waterways. Zebra mussels will attach to anything and can breed off anything. Okay, they also call it ecological and economic damage. Okay, it reduces diversity, it's a loss of food and nesting sites for native animals, and it causes economic damage. Okay, purple loosestrife. Lots of people are familiar with this plant because they like to plant it to make their yards nice and pretty. Okay, however, the issue is that it can actually outcompete and take over an entire field. Here's a field in 1968. Purple looseleaf was introduced, and by 10 years later there is nothing in the field but purple loosestrife. Okay, it reduces diversity, it's loss of food and nesting sites for animals. Other animals may not eat this, or they'll eat the things that were there in 1968. Alright, logistic growth. Can populations continue to grow exponentially? Of course not. Eventually they're going to hit some sort of ceiling. This is called the carrying capacity. Okay, you have logistic growth, which has the effect of natural controls. When you get to that plateau, that is called your carrying capacity. That is the number of individuals that can reproduce that population can hold. Okay, you get a decreased rate of growth as n reaches k. So they're going to start slowing down. Maximum population is the size that the environment can support with no degradation of habitat. Okay, it varies with changes in resources. The more resources, and that's why you see population growth like this. If you look at this, okay, the plankton, okay, it could be due to water temperatures, it could be due to predators, so forth and so on. Alright, we actually do see population cycles between predator and prey relationships. Here's the snowshoe hare and lynx. You will notice that the population of the snowshoe hare will peak, and then a little bit later the population of the lynx will peak. Then what happens is the lynx is eating lots and lots of the snowshoe hare, so it drops down. Then there's not as much food for the lynx, so their population drops down. Okay, so there's a little bit of lag between the two. Okay, at what population level is the carrying capacity? But we can't really say that as a whole, but we do see that we get to this midpoint right here, and that's generally anytime we get above that, we have this huge drop. So we can estimate that is probably the carrying capacity for those animals. Okay. Alright, human population growth. What factors have contributed to the exponential growth pattern? Well, a lot of medical advances, that type of thing. The population doubled to 1 billion within the next 2 centuries, doubled again to 2 billion between 1850 and 1930, and doubled still again by 1975 to more than 4 billion. The global population now numbers over 6 billion people and is increasing by about 73 million per year. The population grows by approximately 201,000 people each day, the equivalent of adding a city the size of Amarillo, Texas. Every week, the population increases by the size of San Antonio, Milwaukee, or Indianapolis. It takes only 4 years for the world population to grow to add to the equivalent of another United States. Population ecologists predict a population of 7.3 to 8.4 billion people on the Earth by 2025. Okay? So we've had all these advances, which is allowed to the 6 billion population, and we don't know truly if there's a human carrying capacity. Okay? So there's our doubling times. Alright, distribution of population growth. You will see that most of it is the developed countries are very even. Okay? Uneven distribution, 90% of the births are in developing countries rather than developed countries. What is the K for humans? 10 to 15 billion, we're unsure. Uneven distribution of resources, however, wealthiest 20% consumes approximately 90% of the resources. There's an increased gap between the rich and the poor. Okay? So there are choices as to which future the path the world will take. It's going to be deal to the effect of income. Alright, ecological footprint. A more comprehensive approach to estimating the carrying capacity of Earth is to recognize that humans have multiple constraints. We need food, water, fuel, building materials, and other things such as clothing and transportation. The ecological footprint concept summarizes the aggregate land and water areas approximated by each nation to produce the resources it consumes and to absorb the waste it creates. 6 types of ecological productive areas are distinguished in calculating the ecological footprint. Land suitable for crops, pasture, the CO2 produced by burning fossil fuels. Okay. Alright, so this is ecological footprint. Once again, it's that uneven distribution. Wealthiest 20% of the world consumes 86% of the resources and emits 53% of the CO2. Is it overpopulation or is it overconsumption? That could be a huge debate topic. Okay, ecological footprint, once again here by countries. Okay, you will see those countries that are in deficit and those that are in surplus. based on land and water area used to produce all resources each country consumes and to absorb all waste it generates. Okay, bright blue marble spinning in space. That is what ecology is all about. Any questions?